Speaker of House Kevin McCarthy obviously has announced that the House will open a impeachment inquiry. And before I play what he said, and he's asked to be on the program, and he will be in about an hour and a half, I want to tell you what I just posted. The Ukrainian prosecutor who was fired as a direct result of Joe Biden threatening to withhold $1 billion in U.S. aid has specifically stated he was investigating Burisma, the corrupt company that Hunter Biden was serving on. Joe obstructed that investigation. According to Ken Buck and his new friends in the Democrat Party media, he's a Republican from Colorado, this is not evidence of anything. Joe Biden spoke to an untold number of Hunter Biden's foreign clients, including top officials with ties to the Communist Party regime in China. But this, according to Ken Buck and his new friends in the Democrat Party media, is not evidence of anything. Hunter took an untold number of trips with Joe on Air Force Two, where he met with numerous foreign officials in countries and with governments in which Hunter was doing business or wanted to do business. According to Ken Buck and his new friends in the Democrat Party, so what? Joe Biden knew, as a matter of fact, that Hunter was representing officially or even unofficially numerous foreign businesses. That's more than enough. Under the very broad language of FARA, by the way, where you're supposed to register as an agent, that's more than enough to be required to register under FARA. Therefore, Joe Biden assisted his son in violating FARA, which does not require payment of any kind. It is not a specific intent crime. He's a co-conspirator. In other words, either you do it or you don't. It's a registration requirement. Joe Biden's staff and Hunter's business associates were in constant contact. I guess they were just buddies. And there's a ton more. Of course, for impeachment purposes, you do not require evidence of a crime under the criminal code. Ken Buck might not know this, but there was no federal criminal code when the Constitution was ratified, nor is there a requirement of the kind of evidence required to convict in a courtroom or beyond a reasonable doubt standard. But let's be clear, the list of Joe Biden impeachment issues that I just quickly assembled here is far, far more compelling than any information that was brought against Donald Trump. He neither blackmailed the president of Ukraine. Zelensky said he was not blackmailed. Biden did, on tape. Nor did he commit high crimes or misdemeanors on January 6th, when there was no House inquiry, just a railroad job by the House Democrats with support from a mere 10 Republicans, a quick vote, followed by a Stalinist trial in the Senate, while Trump was a private citizen, in which Trump was found innocent. Now, as for Kevin McCarthy not taking a vote of the House to initiate an impeachment inquiry, Nancy Pelosi set the precedent for this. The sword cuts both ways, and in this case, it certainly should. As an aside, Matt Gaetz is whining all the time, this time that McCarthy was too slow to act or whatever. Actually, his beef is with Jim Jordan, James Comer, Jason Smith, the three investigative committee chairmen who've specifically said they need time to build a preliminary case before an impeachment inquiry. So I don't know why we're shooting each other at this point. Plow forward with the impeachment inquiry. And on my show Sunday on Fox, I asked Jim Jordan specifically if there would be an impeachment inquiry, and he said yes, he felt this month. I asked him if there would be a vote. He said, or if he had a majority, if he had enough for the vote. He said he thought they did. So McCarthy decided to do a Pelosi. And that's good. Because it's the only way to stop the Democrats. The only way. You do to them what they do to you. Now, there's a piece by Bill McGurn in the Wall Street Journal. He's probably the last remaining, maybe there's another one, serious editorial writers there. He says, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says impeachment should be rare because normalizing impeachment isn't good for the country. He's right. But House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is calling for an impeachment inquiry, which he says is a natural step forward based on evidence that has been uncovered by the House committee investigating oversight, judiciary, and ways and means. This includes learning that Joe Biden lied during the 2020 debates when he categorically denied Hunter was paid millions from China and said the laptop was Russian disinformation, and that the then vice president had dinner. And I had not read this before I wrote my piece, but it doesn't matter. The evidence is obvious to everybody. And that the then vice president had dinners with his son's business partners and spoke to them on speakerphone when Hunter called. And that his two internal IRS agents have testified the Justice Department sandbagged an IRS investigation. And that a Biden staffer emailed Hunter, business associate Eric Schwerin, confirming that the vice president had signed off on talking points Mr. Schwerin had supplied about Burisma. All this from a man who claims he knew nothing about his son's business. Folks, any one of those or any one of the issues I mentioned is enough for an impeachment inquiry based on the standardless attack on Trump in the first impeachment, but even based on more. So when I hear these rhinos like Karl Rove and his buddies, or when I hear the Republicans in the Senate who are lazy and useless, or when I hear this guy Ken Buck, I scratch my head and say, what, are you all stupid? What's with you? With 3 House committees already investigating, an impeachment inquiry might appear superfluous, but there are practical advantages. To name one, it would enhance the power of House subpoenas. Congressional oversight must be tethered to a legislative purpose, and that includes the subpoenas for information such as the tax and bank records House investigators are asking for, and they've been blocked. By contrast, when a subpoena is part of an impeachment inquiry, Congress is acting at the apex of its power and its ability to compel witness testimony and demand documents. An impeachment inquiry doesn't require a legislative purpose because it's in the damn Constitution, which gives its subpoenas more force in the courts. It also gives the House more negotiating leverage with, say, justice and the IRS. If done judiciously, an impeachment inquiry would be a roadblock, would be a road back from the way Nancy Pelosi stacked every procedural deck and cut every congressional corner to get Donald Trump. Pelosi announced the first Trump impeachment inquiry all by herself, holding a vote after it was already underway, and then proceeded with closed-door testimony and limits on defense witnesses. In the second impeachment, she rushed to vote on impeachment without hearings or an opportunity for the president to present a defense. And what he doesn't say here is that the Senate had a rump Stalinist trial to railroad Trump while he was a private citizen. And this reporter on CNN, what is her name? Dana something or other. Is it Lash? Is that it? Bash, I apologize. Dana Bash, she says, do you impeach a president? Do you impeach a president for the acts of the vice president? So now the lawyers for the White House are feeding CNN and the usual parrots over there, repeating what they hear. Can you actually do that? Can you impeach president, vice president? Yes. 50 years ago, at a press conference in Orlando, Richard Nixon told a television audience the American people have to know whether or not their president is a crook. Mr. Biden's case, they also deserve to know whether the Justice Department has been compromised. By month's end, Republicans will decide whether an impeachment inquiry is the only way they'll get these answers. Well, actually, it was decided, and correctly so, today by McCarthy. And I don't know why this guy Gates is chewing on McCarthy's heels over this, but I don't much care. He's chewing on somebody's heels all the time. I'm not even talking about the budget here. Now we're talking about an impeachment inquiry here. Now here's McCarthy today at a news conference, not to be confused with McConnell, who's staring at the ceiling in the building over there at the Senate. McCarthy actually can speak. Cut one, go.
You know, in the months that we were gone and the weeks, House Republicans have uncovered serious and credible allegations into President Biden's conduct. Taken together, these allegations paint a picture of a culture of corruption. Now, here's what we know so far. Through our investigations, we have found that President Biden did lie to the American people about his own knowledge of his family's foreign business dealings. Eyewitnesses have testified that the president joined on multiple phone calls and had multiple interactions. Dinners resulted in cars and millions of dollars into his son's and his son's business partners. We know that bank records show that nearly $20 million in payments were directed to the Biden family members and associates through various shell companies. The Treasury Department alone has more than 150 transactions involving the Biden family and other business associates that were flagged as suspicious activity by U.S. banks. Even a trusted FBI informant has alleged a bribe to the Biden family. Biden used his official office to coordinate with Hunter Biden's business partners about Hunter's role in Burisma, a Ukrainian energy company. Finally, despite these serious allegations, it appears that the president's family has been offered special treatment by Biden's own administration, treatment that not otherwise would have received if they were not related to the president. These are allegations of abuse of power, obstruction, and corruption, and they warrant further investigation by the House of Representatives.
Now, I can understand why Democrats reject this, because they hate our country and they want power for themselves. So they're not to be taken seriously. They're a dangerous group of reprobates, miscreants, and malcontents. But I cannot understand a single Republican who would say, no, there's not enough information there. Whether it's the Hunter Biden deal, which was really intended to protect Joe Biden, even the current likely, they say, indictment on gun charges, again, as I've explained from day one, intended to protect this president from any tax issues or other related issues. The cover-up by the mob boss, the so-called Attorney General of the United States. The IRS whistleblower testimony about obstruction into their investigations coming out of the Department of Justice. There's just a ton of information here, tons. And I'm afraid Mr. Buck and others don't understand how the Constitution works. The Constitution came before the criminal statutes. High crimes and misdemeanors meant, when they drafted, adopted, and ratified the Constitution, they meant very severe acts, and there's a lot of history behind this. There's a lot of contemporaneous notes that were taken at the time. That is, major offenses of a public kind, of a public trust kind, against the United States and the people of the United States. By misdemeanors, they didn't mean jaywalking. There were no federal jaywalking laws, but they didn't mean jaywalking, a misdemeanor, or parading on public property. By high crimes, they didn't mean committing an act of murder, robbery. And they left it to the common sense, and they hoped the virtue of members of the House of Representatives to come up with their own application based on the conduct of the president. It's not a grab bag of anything you want and everything you think, but that's exactly how Pelosi used it. That's not how the Republicans are using it. They have painstakingly used subpoenas, witnesses, evidence, bank records, to pull together an overwhelming case of potential high crimes and misdemeanors against Joe Biden. And they want to be so careful about it, they are conducting a real inquiry where there will be hearings, where there will be testimony and all the rest, which they never did for Trump. Not in the first impeachment and certainly not in the second impeachment.